Good morning. How are you? This is AM Live. The day is 7th of November 2022 and my name is Zainab Ismail. We have lots to discuss, including the state of insecurity in Kenya's north and why security in most parts of that area still remains elusive. Also, President William Ruto landed in Sharm el-Sheikh yesterday for the COP27 climate summit, and which officially kicked off Sunday afternoon. Now, Kenya is among 194 countries attending the two-week summit, and President Ruto will lead Kenya's delegation during his stay in Egypt. Well, let's begin with some of our news stories making news right now. Then later we will get into what's in the dailies and then deep dive into our conversation this morning. Well, as it turns out, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen is a man of his word. At his vetting for the job, Murkomen promised to make the elusive SGR contract public, and he has. In a tweet, Murkomen said he had released the contract to the people of Kenya by providing copies to the people's representatives through majority leaders in the National Assembly and the Senate, being Kimani Ichung'wah and Aaron Cheruyot respectively. And as it turns out, NTV has also obtained a copy of what is now a document in wide circulation. We shall certainly be digging much deeper into this document here on NTV and just trying to understand exactly the contents of it. Let's just hear quickly what the Cabinet Secretary had to say. All right, like I promised, we'll certainly be getting much deeper into that. Remember, that document was just released yesterday evening. And of course, it is up to us to take a look at exactly the contents of that document and just trying to understand exactly what is inside. Remember, for a very long time, the Kenyans have been asking for the publicization of that specific contract. All right, two other stories making headlines, quite sad in fact. 19 people have reportedly died after a Tanzanian passenger plane, Precision Air, crashed into Lake Victoria as it attempted to land at the lakeside town of Bukoba at around 6 a.m. The aircraft is reported to have been hit by turbulence occasioned by heavy rains, hindering its safe landing at the airport. Sydney Chazima has those details.
Around 8 a.m. on Sunday, images of a floating plane on Lake Victoria began to circulate on social media. The heroic actions of the plane's pilots would see around 26 passengers rescued and rushed to hospital, but 19 passengers were unlucky and have died so far. While delivering the tragic news, Tanzania Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa called for calm even as the identification of the deceased and tracing of their families continued. The plane, which took off from Dar es Salaam around 6 a.m., reportedly carried 43 passengers in total. There were 39 passengers, 2 flight attendants, and 2 pilots on board. The plane reportedly was hit by turbulent waves caused by heavy rains in the area. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu has called for calm even as the country deals with the tragic event. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
Truly tragic. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has announced that in the next 2 weeks, the government will launch a new task force that will look into police reforms in the country. This comes as the men and women in uniform have often complained of harsh working conditions with little pay. In turn, the task force will also seek to address key issues such as better housing for the police, better wages, as well as a streamlined working environment. On the other hand, Rigathi has urged Raila Odinga to take up his rightful role as the opposition leader and keep the Kenya Kwanza government in check.
Lord Jesus Christ himself The men and women in uniform turned up at the Holy Family Basilica in Nairobi County to give thanks as the year comes to a close. Lauded for their exemplary service, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who graced the occasion, assured the men and women in service that there will be reforms that will ensure their needs are met.
In the next 2 weeks, President William Ruto will unveil a task force to review your terms of service and condition. And that task force will follow the bottom-up approach. It will start listening to the constables. Then it will listen to the corporals. Then the sergeants, the senior sergeant, the inspector, all the way to the Inspector General of Police.
The reforms in question include the review of salaries for police officers, better housing allowances, as well as the review of the police uniform. This comes in the wake of structural reforms across the country's security docket, following the disbanded Special Service Unit, following allegations of extrajudicial killings. On the other hand, Gachagua has urged Raila Odinga not to interfere with the government investigations into extrajudicial killings and remain as the key opposition leader.
Kama hangetoka upinzani akakuja kukoroga serikali, angesimamisha mambo mingi sana. Hii maneno ya extrajudicial killing haingeendelea, maneno ya state capture haingeendelea, maneno ya conflict of interest haingeendelea, maneno ya wizi ya pesa ya umma haingeendelea.
On the other hand, Gachagua has also said the government will ensure the working conditions are elevated following the increased cases of suicide among the police force. Helen Aura, NTV.
Thanks, Helen, for that report. Time to look at what's in the dailies this morning. We will begin with the Daily Nation. This is what we have on the very front page of the Daily Nation. Counties paid $35 billion to ghost workers, and that's the salary over 5 years. You have a number of faces there. Vihiga County, 426 ghost workers. The Governor, Wilbur Otichilo. In Mombasa, 300 billion Kenya shillings, talking about 1,000 ghost workers. The Governor, Hassan Joho, and Migori County under Okoth Obado, 314 ghost workers. Well, that's the phony salary accounts haunt governors. Several audits reveal shocking details of theft in counties, with more than 35 billion looted by rogue officials who paid monthly salaries to thousands of fake staff for years, despite a 2014 biometric audit weeding out over 12,000 ghost workers. Who stole the money, and will they get away with it? That's a full splash on pages 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation. Still adjacent to that, 19 dead in plane crash, 26 survived. That's on page 20. The dead include cabin crew and passengers. But by last evening, it was still not clear whether the reported fatalities included part of the rescue team. All right, let's just get inside to see what's happening inside. And this is another big story here. Ruto to address climate talks as Africa suffers heartbreak. Well, President William Ruto is today expected to address the world's biggest climate meeting in Africa. Yesterday suffered a major heartbreak on day one of the two-week conference. Yesterday, delegates from all over the world attending the 2022 UNCCC in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt were informed that an agreement had been reached after intense negotiations to have the issue of loss and damage as an agenda to discuss whether polluting rich nations should compensate poor countries who are the most vulnerable to climate change for their suffering, but no later than 2024. So that's a big issue here. The bid to have loss and damage included in the agenda has been put off to a later date. And this was one of the biggest issues that certainly, especially African countries, were hoping to be part of the conversation in COP27. Well, Egypt Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry has also been elected the COP27 president. That's the foreign minister. there in Egypt, and you can see his face. Of course, this happening as the COP27 is also underway in Egypt. This is considered, by the way, to be one of the largest COPs ever in terms of attendance, with more than 50,000 attendees set to participate in the event that shall reach its climax on the 18th of November. We'll certainly be digging much deeper into this later on in the day. All right, and another big issue here. This is what has dominated at least the weekend. KQ striking pilots will face the music. Seeing a lot of stranded passengers. The picture there, though, is at the Moi International Airport in Mombasa on Saturday as the strike by the Kenya Airways pilots kicked off. Most passengers who had booked KQ flights to Nairobi were diverted to Jumbo Jet following the strike. Now, at least 56 flights have been cancelled as a strike by Kenya Airways pilots entered its second day yesterday, with the National Airlines management saying it will initiate disciplinary action against all the pilots for absconding duty. The KQ Chief People Officer Tom Shivo yesterday said, say that the management has initiated disciplinary action against the pilots who did defy that order by the Chief Executive Officer Alan Kilavuka to resume work. There are a number of issues that the KQ is facing right now. One of the biggest issues, the financial cost. Earlier, KQ had announced the resumption of flights to Nairobi and Tebe, but despite that announcement and Nairobi-Mombasa routes, KQ had scheduled a flight from Nairobi to Entebbe and back to Nairobi, and another from Nairobi to Mombasa, as well as another from Nairobi to Lusaka. However, it is unclear if the other flights were made, but a spot check at the Mombasa International Airport showed that no KQ plane landed or took off at the scheduled time. All right. So this is another interesting report. Also very important to note is that yesterday, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen said that the government is committed to resolving the impasse. He urged the pilots to be mindful of the consequences of defying a court order and to urgently return to work. All right. So that's another story we are following up on. You will be at the KQ also just trying to understand exactly what the situation looks today. And another issue still on the same team, also expected to look into officers' pay formed within 2 weeks, says Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. We had that report earlier on, a little bit away from KQ. Of course, the government will in the next 2 weeks set up a task force to review the terms of service for security officers with a view to addressing their remuneration and conditions of work. The Deputy President announcing that the President was committed to delivering on his promise of improving the working conditions of security personnel. Let's move forward. Let's see what else we have in the Daily Nation very quickly. All right. Another story here. One of the biggest indeed. That's what's on the, sadly what has happened yesterday. Murkomen makes the SGR contract public, spilling the beans. Transport Cabinet Secretary had promised to reveal the contract details during his vetting. Now, the standard gauge railway contract signed by Kenya gives sweeping powers to its Chinese lenders, including requiring arbitration of any dispute to be held in Beijing. Documents released by the government after years of secrecy have shown. In the contract, which helped President Uhuru Kenyatta build what was Kenya's most expensive infrastructure project, Kenya was bound to keep the details of the deal under lock and key. The reason why authorities, including the former head of state, refused to make the contract public even after a court order. The contract was yesterday made public by the Transport and Infrastructure Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, ending years of speculation on exactly what the country had signed. It's a full splash there on exactly what we need to know in terms of that SGR contract. Moving on, Konza Technopolis will drive digital economy, Owalo says. Well, the Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo has described Konza Technopolis, currently under construction, as the engine that will drive Kenya's growth in the digital space. The newly appointed ICT Cabinet Secretary celebrated by Kenyatta University alumni in Nairobi. Also, in terms of appointments, Surgeon wants vetting of PS nominees halted. In Nakuru-based Surgeon wants the High Court to stop the vetting of principal secretaries nominated by President William Ruto for lack of gender and regional balance. This is Dr. Benjamin Magare Gikenyi, who is based in Nakuru Level 6 Hospital, claiming that the list of the 51 nominees announced by the President on the 2nd of November is illegal for lacking inclusivity. In that case, very quickly filed through a certificate of urgency, the doctor wants the court to restrain the National Assembly from vetting the nominees pending hearing and determination of the case. Well, remember, the vetting is expected to begin today as well. That's another big story. We're following up on the same. Okay, so let's move forward. Still on the Daily Nation. What do we have? Okay, let me get my paper right. Ghost staff haunt counties 9 years after devolution. What a report there. As wary taxpayers complain about poor services in counties, hospitals without drugs and patients sharing beds are pet peeves. Audit report shows that more than 35 billion, correct, get that right, 35 billion Kenya shillings has been looted over the years through ghost workers as the theft continues. The internal staff and payroll audits have become a routine undertaking by every new county administration that usually reveals how billions of shillings are being looted through non-existent staff. However, the new sheriffs in town hardly seal the loopholes, and subsequent probes have often revealed growing theft blamed for the runaway wage bill that has seen counties violate the statutory ceiling on spending on salaries. All right, so you can get this whole report here on the 6th page of the Daily Nation. It is certainly another big issue in terms of the counties and the money that is being lost in the counties in terms of ghost workers in those counties. Still on page 7, still the same report there. We have a number of counties that have been listed. Remember, this was the audit that was done. It is a payroll scam, and the county's reliance on manual payrolls and employees' records are certainly to blame. Okay, moving forward, we shall push drought-resistant crops. That is Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi, who says the government will increase the adoption of drought-resistant crops by farmers as well as new farming technologies as long-term solutions to food insecurity. This as the former Mary Senator faulted the Jubilee government for failing to put in place measures and policies to mitigate drought in the country following seasons of poor rainfall. The CSA, the Kenya Kwanza administration, will focus on weaning Kenyans from overdependence on rain-fed agriculture in order to ensure constant production of food through irrigation and farming. Okay, very quickly, let's just wind up on the Daily Nation, but another report here on the 10th page. Prosecuting officers will clean up service. This is what the DPP Nordin Haji says. The prosecution of officers accused of involvement in enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings will help to clean up the police service. DPP Nordin Haji dismissing claims that he is targeting the police and insisting that the prosecutions were meant to weed out unprofessional officers. This assertion coming a few days after the arraignment of 9 police officers from the disbanded Special Services Unit in connection with the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals, that is Mohammed Saeed Sami and Zulfikar Ahmed, and their Kenyan taxi driver Nicodemus Mwania. The DPP has also given the go-ahead to prosecute 12 senior police officers for the killing of baby Pendo and other atrocities committed during the 2017 post-election chaos in Kisumu. All right. This following up on what exactly was happening, at least for the better part of last week. And finally, misery as bandits hold sway in Valley of Blood and Death. Well, this is a report by Duncan Khaemba. We will be just listening to that report very shortly in a moment before I engage my panelists and guests this morning. And allow me to just introduce them to you right now. We are being joined by the Member of Parliament from Samburu West, Naisula Lesuda. Very good morning. Karibu sana to the program.
Good morning.
Fantastic. And Joseph Samal, the Isiolo North Member of Parliament. Karibu sana. And also virtually, who will be joining us in a short while, is Martin Mavenjina, who is the Senior Program Advisor, Transitional Justice, Kenya Human Rights Commission. A very good morning to you, Martin, joining us all the way from Wajir County. All right, so we will get to the conversation in just a moment. But just to get, your view on what has been the biggest story right now, apart from this, and it's right on the second page. So this happened yesterday evening. Just a quick, remark on that, because, you're part of the leadership in this country. So you have the Cabinet Secretary, Transport Cabinet Secretary Murkomen, making the SGR contract public. And, he had promised to reveal the contract details during his vetting exercise in Parliament. What do you make of this? I'll begin with you, Joseph. Mheshimiwa.
I think it has come at the right time. Oversight in government. It's the process, and I think it is in order.
It is in order. Yeah. Very quickly, Mheshimiwa Naisula.
I think
shocking to see this.
Kenyans have been asking for it, and also leaders, and now it is out. Right. So we'll be interrogating it further
to see exactly what is inside.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. All right, so let's just quickly take a look at very front page of the Business Daily. This is what we have. Kenya scores big in bid to raise taxes on global firms, and the deal seeks to impose list rate at 15%. Enforcement date set for January 2024. Also, new MPs take fight for hefty allowances to SRC's doorstep. And Airtel Kenya's net loss widens to 1.7 billion shillings. On Taifa Leo, this is what we have. Nani msema kweli wanachozania, and you have a number of issues there coming up in terms of food, security, the NSSF issue, judiciary, as well as taxation. And this is the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who has been speaking on a number of these issues. All right, on the East African, this is what we have on the very front page. DRC, Uhuru re-energizes peace process. All parties to the process agree to adopt model that involves community leaders and other partners as he proposed. And also on the Standard, very front page, of course, that's been quite the talking point since yesterday evening. Truth on SGR billions, as the government pledges to extend the standard gauge railway to Kisumu and eventually Malaba. The controversy around the initial work seemed to be here to stay, and a peek through the contract between Kenya and China to construct the railway shows the country could have sold its soul, or is it? So that is what we will also be looking at later in the day. Remember also COP27, like I'd mentioned, the world meets in Egypt amid warning of climate disaster. All right, let's now take a look at that report there by Duncan Khaemba. And bandit attacks and cattle rustling in Kenya's north are not new, and hundreds of lives have suddenly been lost and thousands of livestock stolen in a vice that has left communities living in the Suguta and Kerio valleys desperate. So what happens when both the leaders and the electorate despair while government continues talking tough with no real results? This is a situation facing many of the residents in Samburu West constituency who are victims of the recent bandit attacks that have left over 20 people dead in just 2 months. Duncan Khaemba is back from Samburu and filed this particular special report, Tormented North. Let's just take a look at just a quick preview of that story.
I am honestly tired, and Kenyans are tired. What do you intend to do differently from your predecessors, away from the usual rhetoric and threats? Perhaps you need to come and live in Kurkur, Pora, Longewan, Losuk, incognito for only 1 week. Come and stay there.
Sisi hatuko kaunti yao. Hatuko kaunti yao kabisa. Wako kaunti ya Samburu. Na nianze, yani wako kaunti yetu, wanapewa kila kitu. na bado wanatufahamia.
Ile kitu ameokoa mimi, akapigiwa yeye simu. Wakati alipigiwa simu, mimi nikasimama kuambia yeye washana na simu. Yeye akaenda step moja mbele yangu. Wakati yeye anaongea na simu, risasi akalia. Akapata yeye.
Hata vile saa hii tuko ni kama tunaangamia. Makusudi ya mambo mingi kila kitu imesoroteka.
Hii watu hii kama serikali wanashukana sana. Kuangalia hapa. Hii kitu tunakuja kugundua serikali tu.
Manyata iko ngambo pale. Hapo ndio kwangu. Ng'ombe hawezi lala kwangu nyumbani, inalala kwa msituni huko. Watoto namna hiyo. Juu unaofia tu itakuja kuvamiwa.
No, Twelo. Twelo. Ndio walipoteza maisha. Kwa hiyo mwaka tutukua hii.
Wale ni wale tuko nao wako shule. Sasa yao wanarandanda ovyo ovyo. Wanakuja kila siku kuvamia usiku mchana.
Hakuna vile tutafanya kazi hata kama mheshimiwa Kamketa amekuja kwa Kenya Kwanza na nituvumilie yeye akiwa anakaa ndani ilhali anajua shida ziko wapi na anakataa kufanya kazi.
Of what benefit is it to me to be involved in such? This is if my predecessor was accused, okay, I am accused.
The government also can't run away from it.
I have been instructed, subject to this approval process, to make sure that we deal with banditry once and for all in the North Rift.
It is time for this lawlessness to stop and stop for good.
When Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki appeared before Parliament for his vetting, he encountered his first test when Samburu West legislator Josephine Naisula Lesuda handed him first-hand information as she broke down in tears. It was another sad and grieving day in the north.
As we speak, they have killed one person. 2 people are missing, one who is actually my staff, and they've stolen goods. The only time as a country we behave shocked or surprised is when we lose our security personnel, and only when we lose more than 2 or 3 lives. When will one life be too many to lose in the northern parts of this country?
Another bandit attack had occurred that very morning, hitting home. Another life had been lost and livestock stolen. Yet another tormenting moment for desperate residents.
I am honestly tired, and Kenyans are tired. What do you intend to do differently from your predecessors, away from the usual rhetoric and threats? Perhaps you need to come and live in Kurkur, Pora, Longewan, Losuk, incognito for only 1 week. Come and stay there. What strategy or are your thoughts do you have to end this menace once and for all?
This is Loibornkare village, deep in Samburu land. Here lies the late Andrew Kamain Lenchalote's fresh grave, whose murder on Tuesday 18th October gripped the country's attention as area member of parliament Naisula Lesuda, a journalist by profession, broke the devastating news. His life was brutally ended by bullets from bandits who raided their village the previous night and made away with goats. Whenever a raid occurs, it is the duty of all young men to gather and pursue the attackers in a bid to recover stolen animals, which are their economic mainstay. On that fateful night, together with his brother Joshua, they responded to a neighbor's distress call. Unfortunately, at around 8:40 a.m., bandits who had taken cover in the bushes struck, opened fire on them. Joshua narrowly escaped, but his brother was not so lucky and was murdered.
Tukitembea kwa njia, maadui akaingia kafa. Tupiga tu hapo risasi. Mimi nikatoroka. Jamaa akapigwa hapo risasi, akalala hapo.
Only a few seconds saved Joshua from the jaws of death. They were pursuing 40 goats. Search parties had split into groups, only for their team to land in enemies' hands.
Tulikuwa tunatembea kwa barabara moja. Ile kitu ambaye ameniokoa mimi, yeye ndio yeye alikuwa anashika hii mguu ya barabara, mimi nashika hii. Tukitembea. Ile kitu ameokoa mimi, akapigwa yeye simu. Wakati alipigwa simu, mimi nikasimama kuambia yeye washana na simu. Yeye akaenda step moja mbele yangu. Wakati yeye anaongea na simu, risasi akalia. Akapata yeye. Sasa mimi nikaanguka, nikatembea sasa ndani ya msituni.
Having survived by a whisker, Joshua thrust himself in the bushes, scampering for safety as bandits continued spraying bullets in his direction, forcing him to hide for about 4 hours before rescue came his way.
Huko kuna nyasi mingi na kuna misito. Sasa wakati alikuwa ananikimbiza, naingia ndani ya misito, wakapiga hapo risasi, natoroka, nakimbia. Sasa bahati mzuri nikapata msitu kubwa ambaye iko valley. Sasa nikateremkia ndani hapo. Nikaenda kujificha ndani hapo. Sasa watu wameshafika.
18-year-old Josephine had just married Andrew Kamain Lenchalote and were now settling down to start a family. But that was not to be. The late Andrew was 23 years old and had just finished his secondary education.
They called my husband at 12 a.m. to follow the stolen cows and the bandits who had stolen them. They killed my husband. He was the breadwinner for our extended family.
For Mzee Samuel Lenchalote, the pain of losing such a young son, too much to bear.
Sababu kama hapana yuko, mimi naenda tu, narudi tu. Lakini mimi nataka kuenda msituni kidogo, watu wengine anacheka mimi, nalete, mbao mimi nakubali nakuja.
So ulikuwa unataka kuingia msituni ufuate wenye ni wako kijana?
Yaani mimi hapana, yaani roho tu nasema hapana, yaani naenda wapi? Yaani roho tu nasema tu acha mimi yuma naenda kukupa huko ama mimi naenda kufanya nini huko. Alafu watu wengine nashika mimi nalete. Alafu mimi nakubali nakuja.
From Loibornkare, we cross over to another village in Longewan to another grave of a young man. It is a Form 2 student who was killed in October as well while grazing their animals. His parents, who are still reeling in shock weeks later, too emotional to speak.
Ndio tulipata hiyo shida. Hiyo masiba imetopata. Mwenye alisa kijana ni huyu na dada yangu. Tuko na shida ya kutosha. Ni kwa sababu hakika hata vile saa hii tuko ni kama tunaangamia. Makusudi ya mambo mingi kila kitu imesoroteka. Kweli tumepata shida na tunaona kabisa shida kubwa. Sasa hakuna mtu anakaa mahali alikuwa. Shida ingine kubwa, uchumi umeharibika. Shida ingine kubwa, tunaona hatuna uhuru wa kufanya hata maendeleo. Hata kama mtu anataka kufanya, kama mimi ni pastor, ninaona kanisa liko hapa tu karibu. Na katika hiyo hali ya kukaa hai, tunaona hata makanisa tunaweza kufunga. Na si vyema.
He was buried in a bush in the outskirts of Longewan village as per the culture here for young men who die before getting married.
Tunaomba tu Mungu wa mbinguni atusaidie, tukaweza kusaidika, tupate namna. Serikali ashikane na bunge yetu kutusaidia. Wandugu zetu si wabaya, lakini vile sasa shetani anaingia katikati yetu, ndio tunapata mateso kila wakati.
All right, so that's just a small part of the entire report, Tormented North. You can find the full report on our website at ntv.co.ke as well as nation.africa. Report there by Duncan Khaemba. He just came from Samburu West and filed that particular report. Well, let me once again reintroduce my panelists this morning just to get a sense of exactly what is happening. Mheshimiwa Nesula Lesuda, Member of Parliament, Samburu West. A very good morning once again. Karibu sana. Joseph Samal, MP Isiolo North, and Martin Mavenjina joining us virtually, Senior Program Advisor, Transitional Justice at the Kenya Human Rights Commission. All right, welcome and thank you once again for joining us on AM Live. Certainly a lot to discuss, but we'll begin with the conflict we've seen over decades. It is a continuous ruckus that we've seen, and it is suddenly appears that it's never ending. Let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa Nesula. We saw, your sentiments during the vetting of the Cabinet Secretary in Parliament. It was a very painful, emotional moment for you. Just give us an idea of what the situation is on the ground right now in Samburu West when it comes to the conflict we've been seeing.
Thank you very much, Zainab, and for having us this morning. And it's business as usual, yeah? This morning, when I woke up at around 4, and I received a couple of messages that there was an attack this morning. So I think there are people who think by the way it's like a joke, because you'll be saying last evening, this morning. And a family lost 200 goats and sheep, and that's their livelihood. On the eve that His Excellency the President was in Baragoi on Saturday, so Friday, another attack happened. And there's a family that lost about 300 goats and another one about 70, and someone was injured. He's actually now at the Maralal County Referral Hospital. And so that is the situation as we speak. And it's very sad, His Excellency the President spoke in Baragoi. He was tough talking. He said, don't try me. He's been dared this morning. He's been tried again this morning. And it's very unfortunate, the impunity that's going on that belt and in the entire north. There's just so much impunity. There's so much like mtadu, there's nothing you'll actually do to us. We've done this over the years. We have GSU camps, we have military camps actually in areas like Baragoi, so that's also nothing new. And so really with the new administration and even us, the leaders who've been elected, we have to really think outside the box. We have to think what we have to do. And the CS Interior and Coordination, Honorable Professor Kindiki, we had a meeting with him the other day as Samburu leaders. We were just from the ground and we came to see him in the office. And he has assured us that in 2 weeks' time, he'll be going to Samburu, the entire county, but also Samburu West. I'm actually contemplating not going with him because really, it just looks like we're going to give false hope every now and then to the residents, So we just show up and we talk to them. I mean, there's nothing we have not explained to Honorable Kindiki. He can now go meet his security officers, because I can't be seen every time. When you look at those people, before we went to Baragoi as the leadership, we stopped in my constituency in Losuk. And we spoke to those guys, some guys even who had gone down to follow on the stolen livestock, hadn't even come up. But every time they see us leaders, they just have this sense of hope that, something is going to be done. As guys, we come back, nothing happens. If anything, they continue to have a problem. So I'm really contemplating this time not to go for those meetings, peace, security, everything. Until when? Because, we all have a responsibility to this matter. And I just want to say this, and I wish Honorable Kamket was actually here, because I watched the story yesterday. Correct. And he had some sentiments that he made. And I'll be specific to my constituency, Samburu West. He actually mentioned that there are people who've migrated from Tiati and are now living in Samburu County, and especially Samburu West. And I'm not too sure whether he means that then it's just those people who are terrorizing people of Samburu West. But sometimes even someone can come all the way from Tiati and enabled all the way, because these people don't come from, you know, they don't fall from the skies. I mean, stealing 300, 400 goats or cows, I mean, they don't evaporate to the skies. So I just want to ask him, when he says that deal with those people, Naisula, those are now your people. So are you taking our kindness for granted, that we are hosting you? You're saying those people actually migrated there. So why, if we are hosting you, you're staying in my county and you're saying, please go and access them? There's no way I can access them. There are no access roads. Those are the issues we'll discuss later. How do I even access them? I have to access them through Churo, through Tiati side. And so, you know, as leaders, we can't keep pointing fingers at each other. We cannot continue to apportion blame and now saying that's not my responsibility, it's yours, those are now your people. Because really, they are also watching. And when they have a small sense of feeling that as a leader, I'm protecting them, yeah? And this whole thing of criminals hiding behind communities. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. I've not said all Pokots are bad. I've not said all Turkanas are bad. Even among Samburu community, we have people who are criminals, who are terrorizing people. And so I just wanted to say that that is the situation as it is. Tough talk, waiting for the walk and the action.
All right, and we'll come back to that issue of you know, when new leaders are left in that situation of blaming each other in terms of the situation on ground. Mheshimiwa Joseph, maybe give us an idea of your assessment of the security situation in the north. You're member of Parliament, Isiolo North. Just give us an idea of, you know, just generally speaking, why this, you know, has led to a continuous cycle of violence over the decades that we've seen.
Thank you. First of all, I want to pity Mheshimiwa for the interview that she did with the Professor Kindiki last week. It is a concern. It is a major concern in the north. And it is come at the right time because of the trust that people have given to her, the trust that the people have for their leadership. I want to say that I come from Isiolo. Isiolo has aggressions from all over: Wajir, Marsabit, Garissa, Laikipia, Samburu County, and Marsabit. We border all those. Those are our neighbors.
Right.
In Samburu, they have only Pokot and the Turkanas. Those are the concerns of Mheshimiwa here. But the concerns all over the north are quite common. They are all similar. Getting into the details, saying that so-and-so is making his people cause a lot of raids, it is kind of misplaced. Because the raid is about pasture, resource-based conflict. The north has also the issue of resource-based conflict. The issue has a lot of cultural dynamics. The issue is a kind of whatever people call politically instigated. You hear the Pokot and the leaders, the Turkanas and the leaders, the Samburus and the leaders, the Somalis and the leaders. I manage the conflict of 5 major communities: the Merus, the Turkanas, the Somalis, the Samburus. I'm a leader for all of them. But coming to think about where the conflict is originating from, it needs a concerted effort of all government and the leadership.
But we have gone through all these administrations over many years. We've had the Moi administration, the Kibaki administration, the Kenyatta administration, the Uhuru Kenyatta administration. But this seems to be a problem that we cannot get to the bottom of. Why do you think that is a problem?
It is a commitment. It's a commitment from the government. It's a commitment from the government leadership the government administration, the leadership of all these communities. So the Mheshimiwa here was involved in the peace caravan, which phased out. Now we have NCIC. We have other civil societies that are involved in ensuring that there is no more conflict ahead among the pastoralists. But it still continues.
Okay, let's hear from Martin, who's joining us virtually. Martin, good morning once again. I know the Kenya Human Rights Commission is working on the ground to get, doing research exactly the conflict in those parts of the country. You're in Wajir on the same issue. Just talk to us about what the situation is from your own perspective.
Thank you, Zainab, and let me take this opportunity to say good morning to the viewers and to my fellow panelists here. First and foremost, before I get to your question, I think the situation on the ground is it's a dire situation in this day and age, where for the last 10 years, Kenya's security apparatus has had huge budgetary allocations. The argument that we should be dealing with the bandit problem in this day and age, actually, as of today, is totally unacceptable. When you look at the last budgetary allocation as of this year in June or July, our security agencies were allocated a whopping 317.8 billion. Now, when you look at the bandit problem, it's not it's not a unique problem. This is a problem that has been around. The issue of insecurity in northern Kenya has been around quite some time, and in my honest opinion, there's been a deliberate failure by subsequent governments to address this serious issue. Now, with this insecurity, there have been a host of human rights violations, from from loss of life, destruction of property, displacement, livelihoods. We've had a lot of children who have been killed, women have been left widowed, families displaced. So there's a host of this, a litany of violations. And in this day and age, for a progressive democracy like Kenya, it's totally unacceptable. The second thing I have to point out, Zainab, is when you look at different commitments that have been said by the different office bearers, specifically Waziri Matiang'i and all the other. Yes, I would agree with Mheshimiwa, with Mheshimiwa. Yes, they have been talking tough, but they don't walk the talk. It's quite unfortunate that day in, day out, they actually only get serious when you hear that, maybe 10 police officers have been killed, 20 police officers have been killed, but, Kenyans from all walks of life are dying on a daily basis. And again, I would want to point out that this is entirely acceptable. We are coming, it's about 3 months since we had our last election. And while other Kenyans, in other parts of the country were able to exercise their democratic rights, free and fair, in a secure environment, the people in northern Kenya had to grapple with between casting your vote and trying to remain secure. All of us here know that if you have to go and exercise the democratic right while watching while having to look at your back, wondering if you'll be secure, then it will be hard for you to not only exercise your constitutional right but also enjoy most of the rights.
All right.
The thing I must yes.
Yes, you can finish your point, Martin.
Yes, the thing I must point out is that the people of northern Kenya are equal Kenyans like the rest of us. They pay taxes and they deserve to live in a secure environment just like the rest of us. I'll stop it there for now.
All right. Okay, Martin, thanks. So let's do this. We'll take a very quick break here on AM Live. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. I'm seeing a lot of reaction on social media. We'll be taking a look at some of those tweets and comments and also questions to our leaders here this morning. Let's take that quick break. The hashtag to use, as always, is MLiveNTV. We're back in a short while. Stay with us.
What's this? I trusted you with Tiger Shark because you assured me that you were going to take care of the company. Why is there a huge discrepancy between your reported marketing expenses and liquidated expenses?
Dad, that's Isabel's department. She can explain everything.
It's clear enough to us that Tiger Shark must really be hiding something.
It's obvious they're taking away everything that should be rightfully mine. First my studies, then my job, even my right to visit my mother's grave.
Forever, my love. Every new manager gets a grace period, a chance to settle into the job just as Graham Potter did at Chelsea. Indeed, Potter made an almost seamless transition into the Stamford Bridge dugout after taking over from Thomas Tuchel. Which was just as well, because the grace period is over as Graham Potter and Chelsea head towards a crucial stage of the season.
Centum Real Estate has completed and handed over 500 plus homes within the popular and rapidly expanding prime neighborhood of Ipingo. Our estates offer a unique, secure environment and a wide range of outdoor facilities.
I fear for my climate, I fear for my environment, I fear for my people, and I fear for my life.
All around the country, the heat is on.
Hii watoto yangu suku ine tunelala hakuna chakula ushungu.
Nasema Mungu huyu haje wewe na mimi. Njaa mwalimu, njaa, wengine wanazimia.
And the life and death choices facing governments. What is Kenya's plan? And can global leaders find a solution?
We are alive to the challenges of drought.
This week, NTV begins the journey to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt with special reports from the ground and expert views on the road ahead. That's on NTV, where climate action matters. All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching M Live on NTV. It's all the issue of insecurity in Kenya's north. What needs to be done and what is the root of the problem? Let me mention some of your tweets here. At Lekuta saying, what I've seen on NTV about the tormented north is really disheartening and uncalled for. It's high time the government should use forceful action against banditry. At Jizak saying, there was a time we saw drones deployed on the tormented north and captured the workings of the bandits. Why they didn't take those bandits out shows the lack of goodwill by the political elite to stop it. Well, and at Andre Basel saying there is a school in Tiati in Baringo County that has been closed due to tribal clashes, and also residents from some parts of Samburu are being displaced due to tribal clashes. The government never took any action. It's too shameful. And finally, Engineer Eric Kurampe saying it's only fair that the Samburu be armed so as to enable them protect their lives and livelihoods. That's their own opinion. And finally, Samir Jason saying this squarely lies with the politicians. But is it? Mheshimiwa Lesuda, we heard from Martin there from KHRC saying, first of all, this appears to be a deliberate failure by the governments that have been in power. And what do you think is the issue when we're looking at the fact that we're hearing the same rhetoric over and over and over again? We've seen curfews imposed, we've seen police officers deployed, but is it the fact that the government doesn't have enough resources to deal with this issue?
So, thank you, Zainab. And just to put it into context, as you have said, this is something that probably has lasted since independence. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And so I also don't expect us to completely finish or wipe it out or stop it in a day, mm-hmm. you know, or even in a year. Mm-hmm. Honorable Samal mentioned that we had a peace caravan when I left the media, and we worked on just between the Samburus especially and the Pokots. And it's unfair also to always just blame the politicians, because I personally am very committed to people living in peace. I take my time to go talk to people, even to talk to those who are affected, not to to go and revenge, you know, and things like that. But what I want to say is this, and I agree with Martin. Why is it that the security and the peace of the people of the North is always left to the people of the North? We have crime happening in Nairobi, in other areas. Why haven't the people been armed? You know, so, you know, because there's crime in other parts of the country, it is the security apparatus and the government that then ensures that people live in peace. They can go about their lives as normal. The children can go to school. They can go about their business. But how come the people in the North, they're seen, and that is why I was so bitter and sad that day, that then it's almost just like it's their norm, it's cultural, it's about pasture. What pasture were those criminals looking for last night when they drove those 200 goats? It's pure criminality. It's terrorism. People who just come and kill people and shoot people, and then we leave it to those people, you know, that if you're being attacked, arm yourselves more. As a leader, I even get pressure myself to be told, sasa sisi tumeinua mikono, government is not doing anything, Naisula go and get us guns. Me, where do I know I'll go get guns and bullets? You know, why is the security of these individuals and homes left to the civilians and to those people? Lastly, Zainab, you want to tell me, because I had also Honorable Kamket yesterday saying, which is true, and I also said it, that some of these people have nothing to live for, you know? They live in very, you know, there are no access roads, no development, nothing. All they know is about going to steal and to kill. But you want to tell me people who've not gone to school, they even have no intelligence, they have no technology, they have nothing, they can overrun a whole government. Yani they live like they're in their own world. But then if you go there, it's like people just live with impunity. How do you want to convince me that there's nothing that can be done? We saw a lot of efforts in Mount Elgon, and the issue that time of the Sabaots and Pokots and everything, that it was ended because the government was deliberate. Of course, there were some casualties, and there will always be casualties, but they dealt with it decisively, and that matter has been put to rest. When will the matter of the North be dealt with decisively? And the government can even, if we are the problems as politicians, leave us out. Actually, if you have a plan, you can even decide to just leave us out. We will make noise, we'll say, oh, my people, my what. But the criminals have known that there's nothing you will do. You just come, you talk tough, you say you will know, you will see me, and you leave. And the criminals the next day actually show you that we run this place, that we run this territory. So really, it's something that has to be done comprehensively. But
do you think there needs to be a change of tact? Because we've seen the same methods being employed over and over again.
Exactly. And what also I'm wondering is this. So, you know, when I had the president say that, you know, this will come to an end.
Right.
Is there really a plan, you know, after that? So it's gone to Egypt for COP27, you know.
Well, he spoke about the National Police Reservists, which will come to us as well.
So, okay, that's what I'm saying. So, and then Honorable Kindiki, but is there a long-term plan? Because I said these are reactionary, we're doing piecemeal, you know. So, when later we get to what I actually think needs to be done. But generally, I just feel that this thing can't end in a day or two. It is something that we need a comprehensive plan, and actually the plan to be followed.
Right. Mheshimiwa Samal, I mean, so we've examined at least 4 problems in this region. So there's the biggest issue of cattle rustling, which is affecting a majority of the regions. There's also one of the key issues as well, which is the issue of proliferation of the small arms. And I think that's a big tackle that the government has to look at. Then there's a competition of, you know, resources and the conflict between those who've come, you know, what we'd call refugees, and the local communities who are already there. And then this still boils back to the issue of resources, which is still scarce. So when we're looking at the government hoping to deal with this issue, but they're still employing the same tactics, what needs to be done differently?
I think Mheshimiwa Naisula has stated it very clearly. Isolating resource-based conflict, which is water, struggle for a similar resource, that is water and pasture. Water and pasture, unless it is the communities are spoken to and made sure that they internalize whatever they are told, this is not going to last. Because we still have people trying to live within their means. They keep a lot of livestock, and there is little of pasture, there is little resource. The porous borders are still there. We have north, we have Ethiopia, we have Somalia, we have Sudan. Those are cross borders. These are not controlled. Unless the national government puts deliberate efforts of making sure that there are no arms that come to Kenya, come to Turkana, come to Marsabit, come to Garissa, that is not going to last. It's not going to end.
But let's talk about the issue of weapons and arms. I mean, these are people who are right inside, you know, not even within the vicinity of at least the town centers in those areas. Where are they getting the weapons from? And these are very sophisticated weapons when you find, you know, AK-47s and all these things.
They are getting from the porous borders. They are getting from access to the neighboring countries. They are getting from Somalia, and Somalia is not stable.
But
Ethiopia is not stable.
How expensive are these weapons for these, you know, bandits? How are they buying them? Where are they getting this? Where are they sourcing the money from? Isn't that the biggest issue that we should be talking about right now?
They keep livestock. They keep a lot of their friends across borders. They have Somalia as relatives across. They have Mandera. They have Borans have access to Ethiopia. Turkanas have access to Sudan. Pokota have access to Uganda. They have brothers there. So that one gives them an access to getting weapons. But they also keep livestock. They sell their livestock, they get arms. And these arms, they get from the cross borders.
But isn't that a very dangerous issue when we're talking about the fact that, yes, with porous borders, that weapons, so many weapons can be able to be transported into the country unnoticed by government officials?
Because it is porous.
Right.
Yeah, because it is porous and uncontrolled. And uncontrolled because the government has no policy that is making sure that there are controls in place that is
a regulatory framework on the same.
Yes.
All right. I know the Kenya Human Rights Commission also did a bit of research. I believe maybe you can tell me, Martin, in terms of that, in terms of the weapons being you know, transported into the country, being used by the bandits in the north. Is it?
Correct, Zainab. Some of the weapons that you find bandits are using in the north are quite sophisticated weapons. And I'm just following up on what Mheshimiwa said. Yes, we do understand community members here keep a lot of livestock. And, but I must tell you, Zainab, that, you know, arms trade is very expensive. And I can tell you without a shadow of doubt, this is not something that, you know, indigenous community members there must afford. The thing I must point out is that they are regulatory gaps. And
all right. Oh, I apologize for that. We'll be joining Martin in a moment. Seems to have lost that signal a bit. But let me get to Mheshimiwa Lesuda, still on the same of the weapons and arms that we're seeing. Martin has alluded, just a bit earlier ago, that these are very sophisticated weapons. They're expensive to get, but you're having people who are quite in the interior managing to get this. Mheshimiwa Samal says, we do have the porous border, so it's easy to bring in those weapons. But at the back of it, how are they sourcing these weapons, to bring them right at their doorstep, in the interior, and managing to elude, the eyes of the authorities?
So I first want to agree with you that until we face this matter head on, as a people also, as their leaders, and as government officials, and when I say government officials, then security officials, we are just, we're like, a wound. We're just removing the dressing and putting another dressing on top.
Right.
We should really treat it. And I am one of the proponents, most of my colleagues don't agree with it, that the issue of the proliferation of small arms is actually a major, major issue that we have to tackle as a people. So we say we have porous borders. We have porous borders for everything else, even counterfeit goods, and all that. But we always see those, they are nabbed, and there's always a story. If we try to bring in illegal sugar or anything else, even from our borders, there is something that happens to it. Number two is our intelligence system. I mean, you want to tell me that, so that, maybe there's even, and these are just theories, I can't be factual about it, but there could also be collaboration, even, it's a whole business, a whole trade, because how do you not have intelligence of where it's coming from, who is this person, because, okay, so if it's porous, there has to be someone who is actually then bringing them in, where then the rest can come and buy from. They never go as a group and go to the border and buy there. There's a source. There's somebody who actually goes and brings them. You want to tell me, and that is where I'm saying it cannot possibly be that the entire security system can be overrun by individuals living also in the north. And for as long as an individual, a civilian who is not trained, actually has a gun. Yes, sometimes, as they say, it is to protect yourself. But that gun as well can be used to go and attack and kill. And so we might want to run away from this issue. We can talk about pasture. We can talk about people wanting to expansion and remove you from your land. But what are they using to do it? They are using the guns. So it is actually a serious issue which we have to talk about. Whether we agree, I don't know, it's just my thought. I agree with the NPR and KPR for the moment, because also we've tried disarmament many times and it's not worked. And why it has not worked is because, one, it's not done comprehensively and simultaneously.
All right.
So, like for example, when there's an attack in between, let's say, Pokot and Turkana, then we will go quickly and try and disarm just those guys. Then you leave. They feel vulnerable because their neighbors have not been disarmed. What do? They go again and arm themselves. And so the NPR, and why we're saying NPR is because they understand the terrain, they'll be there to respond first. It's about their livestock, their people.
Right.
So we get trained NPR under a commandant, and then we put them across all these counties, all the counties, so that first we are offering security before we disarm. Once we offer security and people actually feel safe, then now disarmament should be done across the region, but first offering security. NPR, and also, the president spoke about the military camps and also the police and everything.
Right.
So first offer security. Then come and get these weapons out. Then know how to close those porous borders. Otherwise, we will just be talking, as you said, about these things, but that is the elephant in the room, which none of us wants to actually talk about. Actually, for a politician, I now talk about disarmament. It's a whole story, even with the people that you represent, because they say we don't feel safe. So let's first offer security, and then we disarm.
All right.
Yeah.
I see Martin is back. Martin, I'll give you an opportunity to make your point on the issue of the proliferation of small weapons and arms in that part of the country.
Thanks, Zainab, and sorry about that interruption. So the point I was trying to make is that the porosity of our borders is just a clear demonstration about government's failure to secure Kenyans. In my earlier submission, I told you in this financial year, our security agencies were allocated 317 billion. If you look at the size of, just the National Police Service, they're over 100,000. And when you look at the insecurity of the North, we're all aware that the government has deployed police officers, they've deployed the Border Patrol Unit, they've deployed KDF to deal with this serious security issue. So when you look at the whole subject of porosity of our borders, it's just a clear demonstration that it's lack of government will to actually secure our borders. Because how would you explain that the other border points of Kenya are actually more secure than the North? Why should people in the North be unequal from the other Kenyans who are secure? Yes, that is the point I wanted to make, Zainab, and thank you.
All right. Mheshimiwa Samal, when we're talking about the issue of the National Police Reservists being deployed in that area and at least being armed to deal with the issue of insecurity, do you think, at least to some extent, that this will be able to aid the security officials in the country, the national security, in terms of trying to, curb this menace?
The existence of NPR in the North, it is quite appealing to the communities. It is the right approach that the government would want to engage with, because I would think that they need to be trained, to be encouraged not to ethnicize. If you are a Samburu, you need to work for the Turkanas and everybody else that is within the Samburu. If you are a Turkana in Isiolo, you need to work for everybody that is in Isiolo, irrespective of whether it's your community that is being attacked, irrespective of whether the aggression comes from the Borans, the Somalis, the Merus, or that. So you need to be NPR for all the communities around that. But
that's not the case right now.
That is not the case. Yeah? The Somalis will have to follow their livestock. The Turkanas will have to follow their livestock. If they are stolen, the Samburus will have to follow their livestock. So, but if there is a concerted effort of ensuring that all these are brought together in a camp, they coexist together, they can agree to peacefully address issues that are emanating from whichever community, that one will be feasible. Yeah.
Right. Mheshimiwa Naisula, when we're talking about the fact that, the firearms that are at the hands of these bandits are uncountable, do we have, and I think Mheshimiwa Samala mentioned earlier, but we didn't get much into it, a regulatory framework on how the firearms are being managed by the government and also security officials on the ground in the local areas?
Okay, but allow me also to say this, that the incident that we all always keep referring to, the one in Baragoi, where police officers were killed, and actually all their guns, including their boots and uniform, everything was taken. If that
by the bandits?
Yes. If that day we didn't do anything as a country, I actually don't see anything happening. when it's one person shot and livestock stolen and things like that. Although I don't want to be really pessimistic, but to the question that you have asked about regulations, I've been in this on this issue for a very long time, over 15 years now. There is nothing that is not there, Zainab. We've
so
gone
all the
to
legislation.
We've gone to meetings. We've gone to conferences. We've gone to we've had steering committees. We've worked on this issue. If you just go to OP, you'll get booklets on the whole issue of small arms and what should be done. I'm sure Kina Martin, all of them, they have worked on these issues and we know them. As Samal had said, Mheshimiwa, it is just the commitment and the goodwill to then do it. I think we know what the problems are. We know what should be done. It's just the doing part that is really taking us back in terms of ensuring that this matter has been resolved. I agree with him on issue of NPR, and that is why I'm very worried. For example, like in my constituency, because we have one camp, Tunkai Conservancy, where we had NPR, both Pokot and Samburus, in it, and it had really helped us because then they were working for both communities. When criminals come from whichever community, they work together and everything. But the situation now has gotten out of hand to a point where now the Pokot NPRs have fled. And when such things now happen, you can tell that it's not business as usual. And that is why now, why I'm getting frustrated is because we are not able to, this thing now is getting out of hand. And I agree with him also that it's a commitment from all of us. And I'd just like to appeal to my fellow leaders, yeah, that this back and forth from all of us will not help us. Because if even just to convince our communities that the NPRs have to serve all, or that they need to even work together or to live together, that might have to take us as politicians to discuss and to have this conversation with our people. So we have to agree that all communities, the residents of the North, have to agree that enough is enough. The political leaders have to agree enough is enough. And then now the security apparatus also say enough is enough. And then all of us play our role in ensuring that there is peace in the North, so that it's not just a matter of it's just the security officers, it's not us the politicians, but you're the one who's funding, you're the one who's, we need to stop that. And I'm just happy that this matter is now a national discourse, and everybody can be sure I will not keep quiet this time until we get a solution to this matter.
Well, there are also sentiments that there is lack of support and commitment from the locals themselves on the ground by failing to disclose information and also hiding and knowing that there are these people within our midst and still hiding to give out that information.
And that's why I said it is everybody, all of us, including also the communities and the residents.
Right.
Because, and I keep telling them when I talk to them, even my people of my constituency in Samburu, so when they're not raiding, they're also attacking roads, they're like, they waylay people and steal and shoot and kill, And I keep saying, when you hide these criminals, I know of an incident where, one of the criminals shot the mother, So when you hide because he's your son, when now they are not going for a raid, they are attacking on the highways and things like that, the one day they will also shoot you. And so, and also what I had said, as communities, we have to stop this business, all of us, because these cows, by the time they get to wherever they're going, they are going through a place where there are people. And they sleep even in homesteads as they go to their final destination.
Right.
Why are also communities not saying this is where these animals are, or these are the criminals in our community, Number two, when they bring, before maybe they are sold somewhere else or something, and I keep talking even to the mothers, why would you milk a cow? You as a person. Because, also, and I keep saying that even the residents themselves can't run away from this, because you will always be crying, where are the leaders, where is government, where is everything? But also you, honestly, how are you milking a cow where someone died because of that cow? you know. And sometimes these cows, let me tell you, are so emaciated. A cow has been stolen from Turkana, it has come to Pokot, it has come to Samburu, it goes all the way to Isiolo. It is, yani, we are dying because we are killing each other because of, you know, I wish even there were better kind of grade or cows. Number two, as pastoralists and also people from the north, we have to agree that actually we are taking ourselves back by continuing with this activities, one. Two, the problems that face the people of Isiolo are the same problems that face the people of Samburu. They are the same problems that face the people of Tiati. I wish one of us was even more superior or better, so that you say, you know, my country is better because, you know, my county is better, so I can go and attack this ones. Right now, we are struggling with drought, all of us, from that end to that end. We are struggling with drought, now include insecurity on top of it, you know? So I agree with you, and that's why I said everybody has a responsibility on this matter.
Right. Okay, before we take a break, Martin, even with this issue, when we talk about increasing security in that region, even with the talks of probably introducing a military action in that particular area to disarm the bandits, there comes the issue of, you know, human rights and security. Where do we draw the line and create a balance between protecting the human rights in that area and then also providing security?
Thanks, Zainab. So when you look at our constitution, that is our rundown. Our security agencies should discharge their duties with due regards to human rights, the rule of and the rule of law. So it is our hope that when these security operations are conducted by the police, by the reservists, or even in instances where the army is employed, then they would be able to observe and promote human rights. The thing I must point out, Zainab, is in past security operations, from our research, from our documentation, you know, police officers, you know, and security agencies have been implicated in serious human rights violations when conducting these operations in the pretext of, you know, flashing out bandits. And if you remember, Mheshimiwa said in every operation, yes, indeed, there are casualties, but in this day and age, we can't actually, it's my honest belief that these operations can't be conducted without casualties. And the point I want to put across is that it's not actually, it should not be acceptable that in conducting these operations, that security agencies in Kenya should be accepted, you know, to do away with human rights. They must observe and maintain human rights. And in instances whereby they've committed human rights against indigenous communities in northern Kenya, then they should face the, you know, the firm hand of the law, just like the rest of us. When if any of us here commits a violation, then you would be able to, you would have your day in court. So they should not, you know, we should not have a different different playing field when it comes to security agencies. They must adhere to basic human rights principles while discharging that.
All right. Before we take a break, just a few tweets here. At D. Gishuru saying, the border between Samburu and Baringo doesn't feel like Kenya. How can you tell them that they're Kenyans? So many deaths from cattle banditry. Lots of talk from the government, zero action. At Ranto saying that bandits should be treated with the same force as terrorists. They don't deserve any space in our communities. It is sad to lose a loved one whose only mistake was herding their livestock or owning them. And also at Evanson Mutisia says, and asking a question, who funds the bandits? Why do they kill innocent, hardworking citizens? It is a question we've been asking for many, many years. All right, let's take another quick break here on AM Live. We'll be back to continue with this conversation in a moment. The hashtag, as always, is AM Live and TV. We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us.
Are investing in the next generation of tech dreamers. Together, we harness the power of innovation. The Family Group Foundation is the anchor sustainability body for the Family Bank Group.
Want to know the biggest story of the week? Do not worry. The Weekly Review has got you covered for in-depth analysis of politics, business, governance, as well as social issues. The Weekly Review covers it all. For well-researched, exclusive and investigative content, read the Weekly Review every Sunday on Nation e-paper and on www.nation.africa, free of charge.
Every new manager gets a grace period, a chance to settle into the job just as Graham Potter did at Chelsea. Indeed, Potter made an almost seamless transition into the Stamford Bridge dugout after taking over from Thomas Tuchel. Which was just as well, because the grace period is over as Graham Potter and Chelsea head towards a crucial stage of the season.
Building on a success. Future bright, no we check it up, don't get bigger cause welding.
K2 Mix on NTV.
This is how we do it, this is how we get down.
Discover the exciting world around the showbiz and celebrity news, the hottest mixes from top DJs, mind-blowing interviews on your favorite entertainment show, K2 Mix, only on NTV.
What's this? I trusted you with Tiger Shark because you assured me that you were going to take care of the company. Why is there a huge discrepancy between your reported marketing expenses and liquidated expenses?
Dad, that's Isabel's department. She can explain everything.
It's clear enough to us that Tiger Shark must really be hiding something.
It's obvious they're taking away everything that should be rightfully mine. First my studies, then my job, even my right to visit my mother's grave.
Forever, my love.
All right, thank you for staying with us as always. You're watching AM Live on NTV. That's the hashtag we're using this morning. I still see your tweets and comments coming in. I will be sampling them during this program. But this is what President William Ruto had to say over the weekend on the issue of security in the northern part of the country. Let's just quickly listen in.
Wacha nitangaze nikiwa hapa Baragoi ya kwamba biashara ya wizi wa ng'ombe, ya kuua wananchi, ya kukosesha watoto wetu wasiende shuleni, hiyo biashara itakoma. Sio tafadhali, mambo hiyo itakoma. Na mimi nitatumia mbinu zote, nitatumia uwezo yote ya serikali. Tayari tumesema tutawapatia police reserve 360 tayari hapa Samburu. Nitaweka polisi wa kutosha. Ikibidi nitaweka jeshi hapa kuhakikisha ya kwamba hawa watu wanatuletea ujinga. Hiyo ujinga itakoma. Nyinyi mnanielewa? Na mimi najua wale nazungumza juu yao wananisikiza. Nyinyi munaoendesha hiyo biashara ya kuiba ng'ombe, kuua wananchi, kusababisha ukosefu wa usalama, mutafute kazi ingine ya kufanya. Na mkinijaribu, mutajua hamjui.
Mtajua hamjui. And unfortunately enough, like Mheshimiwa Naisola said, they have actually tried the president. So we'll certainly be looking to see what action the government will take to address this particular issue. Mheshimiwa Samal, let's talk about the impact this has had on the residents of the affected areas. In Isiolo, for example, the conflict that we've seen there, over the many years that we've seen, still replicating itself over and over again. Talk to us about how this has affected the residents. On the education matter in Samburu West, we have a Maya Primary School, which has been closed for a long period of time. Children are not going to school anymore. Talk to us about some of the biggest impacts that this insecurity issue has had on the residents of your region.
Displacement. Mm-hmm. People move from wherever they existed, and they move elsewhere, where they become like refugees. Mm-hmm. Schools closed. Okay.
So education has been affected?
Education affected completely.
Correct.
You find a school that has 300 children, right, moving and seeking for alternative school. Mm-hmm. People following livestock that are stolen. Mm-hmm. These children also following livestock, because this is a livelihood mm-hmm. that they are depending on to live in school. Schools that are within the hotspot areas are very much affected. They either miss education. That is also has affected performance. It also affects performance because if your education is interfered with, you won't concentrate. Concentration is lacking.
Which then has a longer term effect. I mean, when you have the same children that are having taking examinations from, with the same examinations with children who are in a very, stable environment and all this, and expected to perform within the same context, it means then the education will suddenly, there's a spiral effect on the long term, right?
It affects so much the concentration, the movement is also affected. That moving
Which
from
means
this
then
school,
development is also affected
moving
in that
from
region, right?
Moving from one school to the other, you leave a school that you began, you have invested for 2 years, for 3 years, and moving elsewhere that you are beginning another school where it was not your part of wherever you are living. The problem that is being generated, that today attack to this school, tomorrow attack to another school that you want to move to.
Right.
In the period, you waste a lot of time in thinking. You are thinking. Your energies all are invested into how can I survive in this transition.
Right.
So you're not thinking about the transition from this class to another class or to.
It is an issue of survival and not thriving.
Yeah.
Right. Mheshimiwa Lesuda, before we get to Martin, tell us about that biggest impact that this has on the residents of at least Samburu.
So, and it's just across the whole belt in the north. So, of course, the loss of life, yeah? And
which is certainly the biggest issue.
It's the biggest issue for me, where innocent people are just killed. The young man who was killed the other day was a Form 4 leaver. This year, actually, I buried a Form 4 kid who had gotten a C+. He was going to university. The only child who's been educated by that family, really, and he was the source of hope for that family. So for me, the biggest impact is actually the loss of life. And then what happens now? As you're saying, the spiral effect. So that child was going to probably come and help this family. So he's gone. For others, the breadwinners are killed. What happened? You steal all the livestock these people have. The mainstay of our people is keeping livestock. Poverty. You go to our home, people are just poor now, they have nothing. Kids who are in school, we sell our cows or goats so that we pay school fees. So we have lots of children dropping out of school because now they can't afford to pay school fees. And then now, as I said, issues of displacement, For example, in my constituency, we issued title deeds. People are actually ready to settle in Samburu West. People want to go and live in their land. They want to farm. They want to develop. They can't. They've moved from their areas.
They fear for their lives.
I saw some people saying, oh, but why then don't you people build schools and your people to go to school and things like that? I have put resources through NGCDF in Amaya Primary so that actually our children can go to school. The school is open on and off depending on the situation.
But that's not stable.
And that's not stable.
Right.
There's also no value for government money because we build this infrastructure, these schools, and we leave them because of insecurity. So, and anyway, people who can actually go and attack a school. A school should be almost a safe place where children should be able to go and learn. How do you attack a school? How do you go kill children in school? You know?
And the fact that perhaps we see this as an only men affair is not correct, because then you have women and children caught up in the crossfire, and you know, they still bring up then other issues like gender-based violence, and then all these things that also come into play.
Yeah, and you know, so you just find a lady, a woman, is either fetching water or fetching her, and that is why for me, I think we're beyond. In my place, it's now just expansion to remove expulsion, to remove people from their area of where they're living. And you just shoot a lady. She's not armed. She can't do anything to you. Why are you killing? You know, and sometimes we even say, please even take now the livestock. Why are you killing people? And then also those ones that their livestock, like the guy who was being interviewed yesterday, the other day, was saying, I'm injured, my livestock is taken, so I don't even see a need to go back home. What am I going back home to do? So really, I think also what we need to do is humanize this issue. As you're saying, what is the impact? We need to put a human face to it. These are people, these are families, these are people, honest Kenyans who just want to live their life. And so that we just don't look at it, it's a cultural issue, it's a tradition. We should put a human face to this conflict. And the pain and the devastation and the trouble that innocent Kenyans are facing. You know, it's not even criminal and criminals meeting from both communities or communities and then fighting. You know, there's a time when sometimes I go talk to the young people of whichever community. I tell them, my friends, if you think it's a sport, why don't we just take you guys to a range? You decide how many pokots you want to kill today. Samburus, you tell us how many you want to kill today. Put yourselves in a range, Uko, and shoot each other. Then we end this business. Because, you know, why are you killing innocent people? You know, if you people think it's a game, it's a sport, go to any range. You finish your business there. Because the people who are actually suffering are just the innocent Kenyans who are living in the north.
Caught up in this crossfire. Martin, from the civil society's view and perspective, what are the cost implications of this conflict, at least long-term, over the decades that we've seen, and moving forward?
Thanks, Zainab. First and foremost, this conflict has had significant negative ramifications on development and a host of other rights, from Kenyans from the north. When you look at the right to education, probably very many school-going children should have made significant milestones in their education, but they can't do that because they can't enjoy the right to education. So that is one of the significant negative impacts of this menace. The second thing I have to point out is on the loss of livelihood. It's quite unfortunate that in this day and age that anywhere in Kenya that innocent Kenyans should actually lose their lives or even their livelihood as a result of banditry, or even as or that is partly attributed to government's failure to actually address this issue. So back to your question, how this has actually directly affected people in the north is that they cannot actually be put at the same economic level as other Kenyans because they cannot sustain their livelihood because of the dire security situation there. The third is when you look at access to health services.
Right.
It has had the insecurity in the north and the government's failure to address this then has had a significant impact on the ability of citizens there to access basic health services. The mothers are unable to actually access, facilities where they can give birth because, they can't actually go to these hospitals. Doctors, we all know that most doctors, there was some time back, some doctors actually fled some parts of northern Kenya, and they cited insecurity. Teachers left northern Kenya, and they cited, some time back, they cited insecurity. So when you look at in terms of, professional services being given to these Kenyans, many people would not want to go there. That would simply mean that they would be lagging behind in terms of, moving forward with the rest of Kenyans. The other thing I want to point out is in terms of the destruction to the land and even displacement. Earlier this year, from our documentation, we did, from a fact-finding mission and engagement with the community members from the north, our findings, it disclosed over 1,000 people had been displaced. And in this day and age, it's just totally unacceptable to have over 1,000 people displaced. Because remember, when you displace people from their natural or from the localities they live in, then the question you have to ask yourself is, where do you expect them to live? Where would you want them to live? And with displacement comes destruction, loss and destruction of property. Some of these community members have lost their identification cards, they've lost their land titles, and we all know the painstaking process it takes in Kenya to actually replace some documents like your ID or even a land title or even any of the personal documents. It's not, a walk in the bay. It's not easy to actually replace some of these.
Correct. So I think we've lost Martin once again. But he's spoken about a number of issues, but also picking up on one issue that has come out a number of times, Mheshimiwa Samal, is the issue of development to address the issue of insecurity in the northern frontier. So people are talking about opening up of areas to infrastructure and what they're calling aggressive development. Could this perhaps be a solution to at least open up the solution to addressing the challenge that we have there?
Definitely yes. I was there in the 11th Parliament. 11th Parliament, I told people I need two things, peace and development. These two go together. And I managed to put within the first 3 years 11 schools, 11-day schools. I invested so much with the NGCDF money taking children to schools, secondary schools and universities. I invested so much in education. I want to agree with the civil society, Martin, that if you invest in education, you invest so much in curbing a lot of issues that are going to get into the mind of the people and react differently. A reaction is different. An educated person reacts differently. Invest in agriculture, because the problem is water. If you give them alternative livelihood, they will not think of planning another thing outside whatever you have invested in them. Invest in water for livestock, water for human consumption, water for agriculture. You've invested in the two multiple issues that are going to keep these people together, to keep them thinking about an alternative way of surviving. They will avoid livestock. They will not think of killing one another because of grass, because of pasture, because this water is bringing them, they will see interest for water. They will see interest for pasture. You see? You think of, right now we are thinking of water tracking that is encouraging more of livestock keeping. We are thinking of building health facilities that will be taking services closer to them. We are thinking of land allocation, titling. Mheshimiwa Naisula said, with the titles, they are still displaced. Yeah? We gave around 4,700 titles in Ngaramara, a place that one ward. The other communities outside the Ngaramara within Isiolo County refused. Refused to say that we don't want adjudication, all that, but that one has made people of Ngaramara think of the other alternative way of living, kwa sababu they have titles, they have to think of how they can develop. So, thinking of dams. Dams are placed in a certain place.
Correct.
Within one place.
Apologize for that. All right. Yes.
Within one place, dams. That dam encourages, can put together a lot of people who are going to make a living from that dam.
Correct.
Apart from livestock, they will keep little livestock, very few of them. Like what Naisula said, they can go into even keeping livestock that are not creating a lot of issues that they can think of taking that livestock to elsewhere. So that is the diversification of livelihood. That is what we call taking people to another level, avoiding focusing on livestock, focusing on keeping large livestock, focusing on thinking of another way of earning a living. That is business.
All right.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Lesuda, you know, even away from the accusations and counter accusations, what needs to happen? What is the first thing that this new administration should put in mind in beginning to address this issue?
So, thank you. And just listening to Honorable Samal, I always wonder what comes first. Yeah? So, is it the development? Is it peace? Is it security? You know, because they're all intertwined. But then we've just commented here that it's very difficult to do development or even to live in your area, to change your lifestyle of even how many cattle you keep in your farm and everything, when there's no peace and there's no security, you know? So, so for me, I seriously think that every single day nothing happens. You know, when I say happens, as in a big way in terms of tackling these criminals, you know, using our intelligence and using everything and really going for them. We will continue to talk until the cows come home. We will continue to blame each other until the cows come home. So when they know that, I'm telling you, within just 1 month, we've had more than 10 raids, and they're all successful, all right? So what happens to the criminals? They become emboldened. Their morale is actually very high, that we are always succeeding. So they will do it again.
And nothing happens.
Yes, so they will do it again and again and again.
When people talk of political goodwill, is it there? When we say, oh, there's no political goodwill, oh, we need political goodwill, is it there? What do we mean by that?
So it is an opportunity.
Right, yes.
It is an opportunity for people to focus on what gets them money, what gives them money. But because if you have a political goodwill, it is a space that's given to people to look at how they can go in with their livelihood, improving livelihood.
All right.
So that is the kind of political goodwill.
But let me just be truthful as well, because until we are truthful on this matter, we have to become leaders who will call a spade, also not protect criminals of even our own communities. Because you see also what happens most of the time is that, and it's for your political reasons as well, that you see and hear no evil when it comes from your community. And even going to talk to people, like I know of incidences that happened even between Samburu and Isiolo, and there's leadership of Samburu. We went there last week, and we even talked to ourselves. We talked to the Samburu herders and everything, and we said, please, please, we want you to live in peace. You're struggling with issues of pasture and everything. So also leaders have to call it out, even when it's from their communities, and help, so that, you know, also the communities also, they take time to get the psyche of the leaders, and whether leaders are actually for peace in the communities or they are not. And so I think it is important, as I said earlier, that the entire North, the leadership, the communities, and everybody, we all agree enough is enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me hear the last one from Martin on this issue. Martin, before I let you go, I know you have to leave. Very quickly, from your angle as a perspective of human rights, what should we be focusing on? What should the new administration focus on?
Thanks, Zainab. First and foremost, the new administration should be focusing on one, instituting a commission inquiry into the systemic human rights violations that have happened in the North for quite on a daily period of time. Because we have to admit, Zainab, colleagues, you can't move forward without actually interrogating what actually ails us currently. So a commission of inquiry is what would come in handy, to just to be able to assess and document comprehensively, what forms of violations have happened within northern Kenya. The second thing that I think should be done with haste is there needs to be a comprehensive disarmament process. And the reason why I said that is that, make no mistake, disarmament in northern Kenya is possible. And like Mheshimiwa Lisida said, this is the chance for the government actually, the current Kenya Kwanza government to actually demonstrate that they can actually do this. You had the clip you played where the president said yesterday, they will deal with this issue once and for all. And also when the speech that he gave when he was sworn in a couple of weeks ago, he did commit to comprehensively dealing with the situation of lawlessness. So this is the chance for actually the Kenya Kwanza administration to comprehensively deal with this issue. So there needs to be a broad and robust disarmament process. The other thing that needs to be done is by the government is that victims have to be compensated. Over the years, there are a lot of people who have been displaced, who have been killed. And the reason that I say that victims have to be compensated, because remember, provision of security is the current duty of the state, the government. Just like us citizens, we pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, KRA comes after you with all its teeth. It's a similar. The government, the duty of the government for the duty of provision of security is squarely on the government. So there's need for them to actually provide security and secure all Kenyans in the north. But more importantly, they should be able to compensate people in the north. And then lastly, there is need to ensure that education and health facilities are actually returned to normalcy in those areas. In this day and age, it is totally unacceptable that in certain parts of Kenya, specifically that women cannot access basic health facilities. Children cannot go to school, so there's need to return to school. There's a need for a return to normalcy there. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thanks, Martin, for that. I'll give Mheshimiwa Lesuda and Mheshimiwa Samal just 1 minute each to make your, final remarks. I'll start with Mheshimiwa Samal. Your final remarks. Is there hope? Perhaps 2 months in, we have new administration. They're talking tough on this issue. Is there hope from your side?
There is hope. There is hope if the government looks at its commitment,
right?
Honors its commitment.
Okay.
Looks at what brings about all these issues, like the cartels they are talking about. putting patrol bases in the hotspot areas, because the president has stated very clearly that he will act. He will act decisively. But let it not be political rhetorics as usual.
Right.
Let it be a commitment. And I know in Isiolo we have 4 army barracks. 4 army barracks. But army barracks, they are also based, the army barracks are based in Baragoi, 7 kilometers away from Baragoi town.
All right.
So additional of army is a rhetoric. Yeah? Is not a commitment. The commitment was made before. That commitment should be enforceable.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Mheshimiwa Lesuda, very quickly, your final remarks.
Yeah, so I just look forward to this menace coming to an end, and just to say that I am hopeful that let's give time to the new administration, but as we give them time, they should know that every day we are losing people and we are losing livestock, so time is not on our side. And I personally commit to do my part as a leader where I am needed to play my part.
All right. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you coming in this morning to have this conversation, quite pertinent and important. And we certainly hope that we'll continue with the conversation in the coming days and to see what action the government will be taking. Naisula Lesuda, Member of Parliament, Samburu West, Joseph Samal, MP, Isiolo North, and of course joining us virtually was Martin Mavenjina, the Senior Program Advisor, Transitional Justice from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for this conversation. We will continue with it. The hashtag we're using online is Tormented North. And just a quick comment here from Kimaru Nahashon saying, Naisula Lesuda loves her people. May God, the Prince of Peace, bring peace to the North. We certainly hope that the Almighty will be able, perhaps we do need divine intervention as well, right? All right, so this is it from AM Live, but don't go away. Your World is coming up in a short while, and Winnie Lubembe is joining me live now.
Absolutely.
Winnie, good morning.
Good
what do you
morning.
have for us this morning?
I mean, listen, I wish we could continue with this conversation because, like you said, it's very pertinent. But then again, we also have to tackle something else that is causing a lot of trouble, and that is the high cost of living. Because there's so many things that happened. COVID happened, politics, you know, elections happened. Now we're facing drought again in the north. So, of course, the biggest question is then how do we maneuver, you know, all this just to make sure that we survive in this harsh economy? Because the inflation, again, rate hit what, 9.6%, you know, in October. So that's very, very high for a lot of people to even access basic needs. And I'm happy that we have MPs here. I wish we could continue with them for your world, just to see what's going to happen, what is it that they can do to, you know, help push the governments, you know, see ways that we can, you know, reduce the prices of basic commodities. But that is what we want to focus on today.
Thank you, Winnie, and we'll certainly look forward to that conversation. All right, so this is where we wrap it up on AM Live. Thank you for watching. My name is Zainab Ismail. Good morning.